we hope that you'll have some wonderful questions tonight and that you'll enjoy the evening. We've got a wealth of information sitting up in front of us right here. Ellen McHugh?
I hate to be bossy, but somebody called me bossy already.
You are.
Thank you. Some of us can't hear you at all.
Oh, you can't hear? Really? Oh, okay. I thought it was too loud. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Gordon Hall.
Thank you, Pat. This is a first for me. I don't know how it's going to go. I certainly appreciate being asked. I know there are other folks in here that could do a lot better than I.
Maybe not. Good idea, but
it might be too close to that. So can you hear me okay? We don't have any no ground rules yet, so why don't we lay some out, and just so that we can keep this. Well, mainly my job is to try to keep this going, is what Pat tells me, so that we have no silent times and so forth. So what I thought I'd do is ask certain questions of certain individuals. I'll probably just ask them how long they've been in town, and then I might ask a question. We'll ask a question. Doesn't mean that person is necessarily the authority on that subject, but it'll get us started, and then I expect others will just sort of fold into it, and we should have a nice evening. We'll try it out, but I think we're probably going to come to each of you as you speak and just hand you the microphone. Let's see how it goes, and yes?
Can we have everyone introduce themselves first?
Okay, fine. Okay, could we start with you, Gordon, and tell us your name and how many years you've been in town, please?
I'm Gordon Mills, and I was told when my father was told we moved in town we'd never be accepted because we were newcomers. I moved here on Bow Street the end of 1937.
Upton Street.
Bow Street.
You were on Bow Street first?
Sure. Long time before I knew
I
you.
didn't know that. I didn't know they were.
My name is Eddie Wheeler. I don't think I need the microphone. And I was born in North Reading on Elm Street in 1924. Born right in the house. No hospital there. And my mother had 3 girls besides myself. And of course I have a lot of things that I could tell about North Reading, things that I have picked up myself, and it'd probably take hours and hours to go through it. But anyway, I'm going to let the other people here introduce themselves.
My name is Ed Kendrick, and I moved into town here in 1935. I was imported in, and I expect to be buried down in the cemetery, so I think I qualify as a native.
I'm Molly Snyder, and I was born here in North Reading in 1913. At that time, we stayed about, I think perhaps 3 years, and then we went to Beverly. And I went all through school in Beverly, but I came back and forth quite often because my grandfather lived here. I have some different things to tell you, but I'll go on and let Marion go ahead.
I'm Marion Thompson. I came to North Reading from New York State in 1917. And I have lived here until the fall of 69. Then I lived in Andover, and now I'm in North Andover.
My name is Ken Jones, and I was born here in 28.
My name is Lyman Fancy, and I was born in 1929 in the Melrose Hospital, and I lived in town ever since.
I'm Al Eisenhower, and I was born in 1928, and I lived at Eisenhower, what they now call Eisenhower Farms.
I'm Alice Tarbox, and I've been here for 71 years.
Thank you very much.
I know.
Let's see if my system works. We'll start with the first one. That's Gordon Mills. Can you tell us a little bit about the fire department here in town when you were young and their activities with it?
Do I have to stand up?
Yes. Yes.
We can hear you.
When I lived,
Give him the microphone, please.
Yeah. Oh.
this is what,
Oh, yeah, walk over here.
I gotta stand up.
Okay, you don't sit
All
down.
right, is that better?
No, you gotta turn it on.
Turn it on. How's that? I can hear myself. I lived right down across the street almost here when I first moved here. And the fire department was almost, I would say, the best. We had three social things in town. We had the Grange was very active, the Legion was very active, and the fire department, not the department, but the Firemen's Relief Association and the Veteran Firemen was very active. The town at that time had a hand pumper, and we used to meet right out in front of the town hall here. This was the town hall, and there was a cistern out in the ground. It's still there. We used to pump as for a competition, and that would carry everything. We went all over the New England pumping because we belonged to the New England Veteran Firemen's Association. I started off in that when I must have been 12, 13 years old, and that was big activity. We could get 30 or 40 people here to pump. That's what it took. Some of these women here were very active in the Firemen's Auxiliary. And that was our fire department was all calls. We get paid once a year. We call it a Christmas thing. And the fire whistle would blow, would be the siren. On the telephone operator, which right across the street, Harold Connor was the fire chief. Call would come in and she'd push the siren on the switchboard. Well, you'd liable to get run over by cars and people running to the fire station. And we had a lot of fun doing that. And what we did, we had minstrel shows. We used to talk to the old fire station, that we call that Harvard Hall. We used to have the minstrel shows we put on for the town. And I forget, that was all our social thing we had expressed as a kid. We used to play kick the can in front of the town place. And I don't know, that was just about all we had with the fire department. We made our own fire truck. We only had one fire truck, was a real fire truck, was a 1928 Maxim. And then we had a GMC we made. We had an old Studebaker car we made into a truck. And when I remember when I first came here, they had an old Model T Ford Chemical back of the station. Billy Conran, who lived across the street, he and I used to hang around the fire station all the time. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you, Gordon. Alfred, I wonder if you'd tell us about some of the skating parties at Eisner's Pond. By the way, it seems to me that when we were young, we used to call them Eisners, but when President Eisenhower came in, is that true? When President Eisenhower became president, it was different?
That was the old down east way of saying Eisenhower. They were kind of late, well, in fact, a lot of them spelled it that way, E-I-S-N-E-R or N-O-R. Because it's a long name, I mean. So that was why they used to pronounce it that way. But when my father took German, he always said, in high school, he always said, he told his father, it should be spelled H-A-U-R-E, it should be E-R on the end. That's the way, the old German way of spelling it was. So, my grandfather never listened to that too much. Well, he was kind of deaf anyway, so. But, let's see.
About the skating?
Oh, yeah. Well, we used to have, it was a very windy place there in the winter. It probably still is. And we used to build fires. We'd go around through the pine trees along the side and gather up dry sticks and stuff. And then us kids would build fires. And of course, we always had marshmallows and that kind of thing. And we'd have our own little parties. But it would get so cold after a while, you'd have to, fortunately my house wasn't too far to go, so I'd be able to get out of the wind. My cousins had to go a little further. It'd be a little colder when they get home. But we used to have quite a good time. We used to have kids from all over town come up. I think Kenny and Lyman, they used to come up and garden, and because the river, you used to come. Yeah, I imagine. You're the same age as my sister, I think, by your birthday. And so we had a really good time up there as kids.
Alfred, did your family used to stock the pond for the kids to fish?
We never stocked it. There were cod in there just naturally, and perch. But my Uncle Edward was quite a fisherman. He used to go up it was Westmoreland, New Hampshire. It was north of Berlin, and they had a lot of brooks up there. And he caught some pickerel one time. So his kids wanted to bring him back, and they got him into the brook, and then we used to hook them and put them up in the pond, and eventually the pond had pickerel. Well.
I want to ask Ken Jones if he would tell us about the stores in town and about some of the businesses. I have, and I think we turned it over to the Historic Society has it. His father has written several pages on the businesses in town, which is really quite nice reading. But I'm going to ask Kenny if he'd tell us about some of the stores and the businesses that he knows about.
Okay. You talking now or yesterday?
Well, when I was growing up as a kid, stores, when I was really young, there was the Economy grocery store, which is now Stop and Shop, was in the center of town in the late 30s until 1942, when it had a fire and burned. And there was another Economy grocery store along the corner, which is Route 28 and North Street, that happened to be owned by my uncle. And so the Economy grocery store is there. In fact, my Social Security card says Economy grocery store on it today. I went to work for them in 1939 at 50 cents a day. I went from 8 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, 50 cents. But, and of course, Raya's store was here, and out on Route 28, there was several that came in and out. It isn't like the bylaws you got today. If you want to open the store, you open the store. That's all there is to it. You didn't run downtown and ask somebody. You opened it up. And other types of businesses that I remember was in the line of garages and gas stations. In fact, my uncle had the first gas pump on Route 28, which is right there where Star Market is now, because that's where their home was back in 1909 when they moved here. And had one gas pump there for themselves, but if you wanted to buy it, did so. There again, there was no licenses needed. But that was back in, I think, 1912 when they put that gas pump in. But there was no shortage of gas stations in North Reading. If you read the history that he wrote, I mean, there was one in every corner compared to today. And only 5 cars, and when they were out of town, you didn't see them until they come back at night. And of course, businesses right next door. You go up this door here. We had, as I knew it, Turner Body Shop, which done many truck bodies all through the times that I can remember up until I was in my teens, 20s. But other businesses that don't really stick out in my mind other than things like that, but as I say, gas stations, things. Of course, there was the Abbott Shoe down here that was made slippers. That was their big thing was slippers. At that time, my dad and my uncle had somewhat of a fleet of trucks, up to 28 trucks at one time, but stayed right down behind the store as you see it here today. And they used to take the shoes every day from Abbott Shoe into where Rose Wharf is today to get on the boat to go to New York. And so there was a lot of people. In fact, I think River worked down there, didn't he, at one time, down to Abbott's?
I did. Oh, yeah.
You were here? Yeah. But I was only that high, running, watching everybody. Other than that, I don't really remember businesses. Thank you.
Wait a minute, what about your father's store and why was the sign backwards?
Well, I'll tell you, on that store, they opened the store in 1944 when they got out of the trucking business due to the fact that they couldn't get drivers during the war to drive trucks. I was 14 and had a federal driver's license to drive a truck. Because at that time they were doing a lot of work to Castle Island and places like that in Boston. But, so they just couldn't get, if you was over 15 or under 40, you was in the service as far as North Reading was concerned, and so they had nowhere to work from. So they opened up the store after it had burnt in 42 in the economy. That's when they started opening the store. They had built the two sections that you see down there now, like it says the Hans Test and the barber shop. Well, that was a store which was called Sheds, where the Hans shop is. They sold everything in there that you could think of. And then next to it was the post office. And then they added the hardware store on there after that. That's where I grew up, in there.
Hey, Ken, you missed, you didn't say anything about your competition right down the street. Al Pennell was a black and
That's right, that's right.
That was the economy, so.
No, he was Pioneer.
And another thing,
That's where Donnie Roberts went in right after Al Pennell.
I heard another thing that, when I used to play, in fact, at the store when I was a kid, all those dump trucks that used to work up the Corvin Reservoir.
Correct.
And I remember my cousins telling me, and Ralph Sweeten telling me, they used to go up there by bus, up to Mason's buses up to Barry, Mass. Now, you people probably know my cousin is Chet Spinney. And he was a kid up there, and he used to, and all the gang up there used to throw snowballs at him.
That brand of truck was a truck probably nobody ever heard of. It was called HUGs.
Yeah.
My father and my uncle brought them 50 cents a work an hour. I seen the bill sales in Detroit.
Yeah.
They had to say they worked 8 hours, they paid them $4. No, they worked 16.
So why was the sign backwards?
Be different.
Yes, it was.
Originally, they had a mirror in each side of it, and they reflected it correctly. But you couldn't get them that were frostproof, so they wouldn't even go one with us. So they gave up on it. And by the way, their checkbook was the same way as you see that sign. And the Federal Reserve sent them a letter one time to straighten that out. And my father, being my father, that was the worst thing you could do, was tell him to do something. About a month later, I said to my dad, "Dad, you gonna have that check straightened out?" He said, "That guy don't even work there anymore. We'll never hear from him." And he didn't. And he kept it that way right up till 1972 when he closed.
And what can you tell us about the old Victor Spaghetti Factory? It was up there in 28.
Well, I don't really remember that much about it, to be honest with you. I do remember that the two Skoll brothers that had it after Victor, but I don't remember as it was Victor.
I wonder if anybody on the panel does.
I remember seeing it. Railroad used to stop there too.
Yeah. Yeah, the railroad, right by the front door. In fact, they had a little trolley that went off on the track.
I can tell you a little bit about my grandfather.
You were there?
No, I can tell you one little thing about it. My father, who is 94 years old, remembers very clearly every summer, they spent the summer at Martin's Pond, my grandmother, and my grandfather had businesses in Boston. And so at the end of the summer, he had an open car, convertible type car. My father must have been about 10 or 12 years old. And he would go down with his father to the spaghetti factory before they went home and buy a wooden case of 50 pounds of spaghetti for 50 cents.
There was one other business that was in town here, and it was on a piece of property in Marblehead Street. It was better known as the 5-tier still. It was a big one. Wasn't it, Lucy? And you know, and it was funny how that was found out. Dickie Turner and I used to go fishing all the time. And
On the ground.
every morning we would see this truck that said Revere Sugar on it going up Havel Street. We couldn't figure out where they were going, so one day we asked Tom Crosby, "Hey Tom, where do they go with all the sugar up to Havel Street?" "Well, I don't know about the sugar up Havel Street." I said, "Well," and he says, "Well, wait, 5:30 in the morning, we're digging worms or something, they're always going up," because Dickie lived right on the cross from the Congregational Church at the time. And so the boys looked into seeing what they were doing. They had a nice one going up there. Yeah, I done it, but sure, you're right, I gotta clear that, had nothing to do with, that still had nothing to do with the Lucci's. It was before their time. I'm sorry.
Okay, somebody else.
Where in Marblehead Street was it?
It's now,
Well, let's see, how can I could only relate it by
it's
names you might not remember.
I think 68 right
That's
now.
where
right?
King's Row,
68th further.
where King's Row is now.
King's Road.
Oh, Kings Road, is that the name of it? Okay. I don't know the modern names.
That's real new, that's my
That's still
road.
paved.
Yeah, right down in back there, going towards Swan Pond.
Didn't they have a
In
barn?
fact, they had the pipe leading towards the pond to drain the excess.
Didn't they have a barn you went through with the double doors?
Ahead of it, yes.
Yes, I mean, you went in the barn. you
In
shut
one
that
side,
door,
out the other.
and then out. They had quite a few of them up Central Street too. From what I understand.
Right on the north end of Central Street. I'm gonna go in jail. Well, I don't know if this is the time to ask it or not. I'm going to ask anybody on the panel. Kenny didn't mention it, but I have a slight advantage over some of you. I listened to some of the tapes that we folks we interviewed in '75 to help prepare for this evening. And I want to see if any of you or anyone in the room has ever heard this before, that when the train was running and it brought the mail in, if the Republicans were in, the mail was delivered to Carpenter's store in the center of town. And if the Democrats were in, it was delivered to Raya's store. Did anyone ever hear that?
I think her father was the postmaster. Until, and I think,
But not back then.
not back then, but I remember the story was, it all depends who was in on who was gonna be the postmaster.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
He got to be postmaster because the Democratic Party was in. He still had to take the civil service exam, it wasn't handed.
I wonder if if we could ask Ed Wheeler if he would describe the farms here in North Reading. I think there were more farms than a lot of us realize. Let's see what Ed has to say about that. Ed, I'm gonna walk over and give this to you, okay?
I may not need that good.
Okay.
Well, if I do,
We'll see what they say.
Yeah, there's, you do, we do. Need
You
it.
can't hear me?
No.
It's on.
Another fellow that isn't here tonight, but is North Reading native. The last couple of weeks, we kind of went over and counted
Just hold it steady, that may help.
Don't we do it?
counted the dairy farms that were in North Reading. And a dairy farm, somebody that had milk to sell, they would have 3 cows or more. And we counted over 20 individual dairy farms in North Reading. And there was all the meadows, when I was a young fella, they were all cut back. That is, what they couldn't cut with machine, a blow machine, it was cut by hand with a scythe. And the meadows didn't have what you call good quality hay, but they would keep that in the barns towards the spring of the year. And then, in order to have the cows eat it, they would sprinkle it with molasses. And they would clean it up pretty well. Then there was 30-odd poultry farms in town. And when I refer to a poultry farm, there's a person that had 100 or more hens. And what they would do was sell the eggs, and that would be a supplemental income, more or less like a sideline. And I knew one fellow in town, he had eggs in the cellar, and he had dry goods, well, not dry goods, but canned goods in the store on the second floor in order to get an income. But as far as stories about farming in town, I could go on for hours and hours, and you'd probably be bored. But one thing I would like to bring to mind, and this isn't to do with the farming story, but this is to do with the boxboard factory in town here that straddled the Ipswich River. And I was down in the summertime under the bridge, which is right adjacent to where the factory was. And that bridge is probably the strongest structure from North Reading to the Bunker Hill Monument, excluding one more bridge in Melrose, and it's made out of granite, a circular structure. And it has a date right on the keystone, 1905, on the upstream side. And when that bridge was being built, they still had the box factory, which was straddling the river. And one of the Turners in town that had a dairy farm at 176 Havel Street, his oldest boy was down there, and he was only 14 years old, with a team. And he was down there to get a load of sawdust to bed the cows down with. And at that time, it was around 5 o'clock, and they let go on the whistle on the steam engine. And the horses ran away, and they ran right up to the barn here on Havel Street. That's one of the things that I've heard. But I could go on for hours and hours, because I befriended a native here, he was Harold Turner, and he worked for me for about 10 years. And all the stories that he could tell me about North Reading, I've got just about all of them up here. But I know it would be kind of boring if I stayed up here all night, but I would suggest I would like to participate in another meeting and then continue on. And I'd like to relate this to some of the younger generations so they would have note of it and they could pass it on. And I appreciate Gordon here for calling me in and having me where I am right now. So thanks a lot, Gordon.
I would like to ask Alice if she would tell. I'd like to ask Alice if she'd tell us about, talk to us about the telephone system back here. Some of us remember. This is Suzanne's phone herself here. There you go.
I have no idea what to tell.
Well, just, it's on, but hold it steady, hold it steady.
See, Mary knows that. I'm sorry. No. I'd rather you be up here talking than me. I would rather take your questions. It was a lot of fun, you cannot imagine.
Where was it?
It was in Conlon's house. Thank you. Yeah. It was in Fossey, in Harold Conlon's house, right in the front room. Well, it was a sweet room. And as Gordon would say, call up and say they had a fire and we'd have to find out where. Then we'd just stand up and blow the whistle. And then everybody in town would want to know where is it. So if they didn't get to the firehouse, I went to the fire anyway. And then every day at noon time we used to blow the whistle. Everybody knew it was noon. So again, as I say, unless you know anything about switchboards, you would never appreciate this one. It was a rarity. Oh, that was.
How many phones were there in North Reading?
We finally went dial, I think there were over 500 and something. But some of the Martin's Ponds and the Liberty Acre, all right, Park Street West, you know where the pond is, had 8 party lines. And that was fun. Someone would call in from Boston and they'd want 1 O ring, 1 3. So you would ring 1 long, 3 short. And by the time you got that out, the operator wanted to know, why didn't they answer? So of course, in her ringing through, it would ring through one line and that would screw up everything. And you'd have to start all over again. So it was an education.
I got one story talking about the telephone. I had one very good experience with the telephone operators in North Reading. I was in the service and I was going over for the Battle of the Bulge. I got left Camp Wheeler, Georgia, and they changed my orders, and they said that plane is going to East Boston Airport, and you got 5 days at home. And that was Christmas Eve. Oh. So I called up and told when I was in East Boston Airport, I called my mother, and Flossie Conran didn't answer. Flossie Conran was on the board. She says, Gordon, I think they've gone up to your uncle's house out in Barry, Mass. And she says, do you know the number up there? And I said, no. She says, well, I'll see if I can get in touch with them. So she got in touch with them, and they called me, and I was able to get the train to Worcester, and they met me in Worcester, so I was home for Christmas Eve.
That's what you call service.
Oh,
right?
Well, I was going to ask Deb Kendrick if he would tell us, I don't know if the trolleys were running when you first came to town or not, but could you tell us about the trolleys? And also I wanted to ask you, some of us have this love affair with these barges and these pungs you used to ride to school in. Maybe you can tell us how uncomfortable they might have been, even though we think it's great to be taken to school by a horse-drawn vehicle.
First I gotta look, have I got it on? First, I got a little laugh story for you. Red Sweetland had a garage right in the center of town. That was a D&S garage.
I can tell you.
I know the kids named it the Dirty and Smelly. But it really wasn't, it was fine. But one day I brought my car down there to have a grease job and the oil changed. And they had it up on the lift, you know. I didn't know how to operate that lift. And a fire alarm come in. The first man over to the fire station got to drive the wagon. And they all left and left mine up there and they'd gone to the fire. The fire was out before I got my car down. Gordon was talking about sleighs. When I was a kid, I really did think we got more snow and bigger winters. I don't believe they ever did it in North Reading, but I saw places in New England where they had a snow roller. And it looked like a silo on its side. And they pulled it with oxen and they rolled the snow down and flattened it out. Everybody there had a fast running horse and a sleigh, and it made very good sledding. And the milkman used to come around even when I was a kid. That wasn't in North Reading. But the milkman would come around, and when he come to hills or anything, he'd have to give up his wagon and get a sleigh. And the sleigh runners stuck out in the back, and us kids used to just love to run and just stand on one of the sleigh runners and get pulled along. And the streetcars had left North Reading. I came here in '35, and they were gone. I think some of the tracks were here, but the cars were no longer running. And not being a native, I don't know too much, but I remember a lot of things that were around here. We had some very interesting places. The center was much more active when Jones had a grocery store that was run by Elmer and a hardware store that was run by Jack. And the garage across the street where the D&S was, between them, they kept a pretty lively setup. Another thing we had in town, down on Elm Street, there was a man named Duchesne that had a sawmill. And I guess we all went down there at one time or another and bought pine boards that were cut right out of our own trees that came from around here. And they made good boards if they let them dry out long enough for the sap to stop running. And, I remember that. And other than that, to me, North Reading was a very good bedroom town. And we went to Boston, and most of us went to Boston to get that weekly paycheck. And that's about summing up anything I can help you to remember. Here you are, Gordon.
Well, Mrs. Snyder, I would like to ask you if you'd tell us about the school system, but before that, do you remember the trolleys? Could you tell us something about that when you also are there?
Yes, I remember the trolley. The trolley used to come from Kitty's Corner down to where the garage used to be. That's where Sawyer's is now.
Just a little closer.
All right.
There. I think so.
Closer. Can you hear?
Yeah.
And that trolley was, as I said, it went from Kitty's down to Sawyer's. And I don't know exactly how often it did run, but that is how people went from the center up to Kitty's. And then, of course, there was always a bus. And that goes right along with train transportation. And the train transportation, that used to go twice a day. It used to go in the morning and then at night. And those are the only two times that people could travel back and forth. And I know when we went to, when I used to go down to Beverly, in fact, when I went to Salem, when I went to school down there, I would have to go up to the station, take the train down to Salem, and then walk from the center of Salem up to the college, then walk back again afterwards and take the train back to North Reading. So, I mean, it was quite a roundabout way of traveling. But it was always fun. We always enjoyed it. And while I'm talking, I think that you might be interested in North Reading. There was another business years ago down at Dutton's Corner. And Dutton's Corner is where Washington Street meets Elm Street. And years ago, there was a little ice cream parlor right there, if you could believe it. And I can remember now looking and seeing these 3 little round tables, ice cream tables, and a chair on either side. And I know my grandfather used to walk down from where he lived to where we lived. And he'd always take me, walk me up to this ice cream parlor, and I'd sit in one of those chairs and have ice cream. So I always remember that.
Could you tell us a little something about, you taught school here?
Yes, I did.
Could you talk a little bit about that? Or you want to sit down for now, we can do it again. You want to talk about that?
Yes, of course, as far as the school system is concerned, I have been out of that for over 20 years now. And of course, it's changed a lot in that time, but it certainly did change a lot even while I was working there. And you can see the difference in the way teaching is done today, and also discipline. But it's not always the teacher's fault as far as discipline is concerned. But nowadays it's the economy and the way that people have to work. Both parties have to work in order to make a living. And so consequently, it leaves the children many times without any supervision. Years ago, we used to call the classroom our paradise, because we could run our own room and do what we wanted to. But now the government has stepped in and done so many things that it really is difficult for a teacher. So, and so many times we hear people complain about no discipline, but there's not too much discipline at home, and that makes a difference too. And I think on the whole, they're all very lucky to have a system that we have in North Reading. It's a very good school system. We've got some good teachers, and everyone works hard, but sometimes the teachers just can't manage because of the different rules.
Gordon, can I ask?
Yes.
Can you tell me, was the railroad stop where Railroad Avenue is down there?
The railroad station?
Yes.
The railroad station is right over where that garage is now.
Oh, okay, because when Mr. Weaver was speaking about the younger crowd, I'm like the youngest one here, and this child behind me. But I can recall a lot of things as a child growing up in this town that have changed. And I feel like I'm old. But
You've got a long way to go.
I would like to have lunch with Mr. Weaver sometime, because I really excuse me.
I don't think you really understand where the railroad station was in town here.
Okay.
All right, let's say you're at Riot's store and you're going south on Halo Street. Going south on Halo Street.
It's on the left. It's an Emma's haircut
No,
place.
no.
Oh, Green
First building
gas
was
station.
on the right.
Right next door to the Eaton Inn.
What?
Right next door to Eaton Inn.
That's right.
Because,
The building's right in there, and I believe it's an auto body now.
well,
It was right in there, that's where the railroad station was.
that's where I
But
thought.
then across the street from that was a continuation, and that was freight yards. And about in 1930, early 30s, my father and my grandfather went to Vermont by train and bought 18 cows, loaded them on a freight car, and then brought them to North Reading on that freight car. And they rode in the freight car because the cows had to be milked. And they were delivered right here at the freight yards. And then they walked him down the street to the farm on Elm Street.
That's interesting.
It is, I mean,
I'm gonna have lunch with you.
and they're all true. They're all true.
Yes.
Yes.
I say they're all true.
Well, listen, I'll tell you, how I know about the Eat Thin was when my dad was first year teacher. He taught at the bachelor's school in North Reading. And then, have you gone to Daniel H. Auditorium ever in the high school? Well, that was my mom's father. So I've come
What was your last name?
McGee.
Dan Shay's
Dan Shay's
granddaughter. Dan O'Shea.
You know, Brenda.
Daniel Shea?
That's my grandfather.
Yeah, all right.
It's his granddaughter.
That's you, yeah,
Take
okay,
her out
now.
to lunch, yeah.
As I was listening to people talking, and I just love the history of this town, and I just want to get it all into my head. But also, I have so many memories and different things that the town was.
Yeah, well, any time that you have the time, I could accommodate you and give you
While you're on, there's a gentleman here that'd like to know if you tell him where the tracks ran, the railroad tracks ran.
Oh, you want to ask me?
This person here asked that question.
Railroad tracks came from Lowell, came through Wilmington. And there was another track went from Lawrence, went to Wilmington. But in Wilmington, near the north end of the line, there was a cross where the trains crossed. And it continued on into North Reading. And then from North Reading, it went to Middleton. And there was a stop there at South Middleton. And it continued on and went to West Peabody. And then from West Peabody, it went to down into part of Peabody, and then into Salem.
There's a railroad street or avenue.
Across
from
Well, we have a railroad avenue in town, and that's what it was. It was never an accepted street. It was just a dirt road that went parallel to the railroad track.
Right along the river.
Yeah,
You said
right along the river.
the station was across Hayward Street from there.
That's right, yes. It was across Hayward Street from Railroad Avenue.
It's a Bay State, was it Bay State Auto Body? It's a Bay State, yeah.
The what? Railroad Avenue began just off of Hayward Street, on the south side of the river. Once you cross the river, right on the south side of it, it went down there along the river and the railroad track. Hence, Railroad Avenue.
It was just a bunch of shacks
And then
down there.
part of it actually went through Monroe's coal yard. They just had it right away.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.
Sure, appreciate it.
One more question?
Another question?
Yes, please. How much was it, the ride on the train?
Gee, I couldn't.
Oh, he knows.
Mrs. Snyder.
Lumps of coal.
It wasn't very much.
I'd say probably a quarter for that.
Oh, did you work on the
I
train?
guess,
There used to be,
from the price of other
Bill
things,
Sullivan
I
worked
think
on the
25
train.
cents.
Bill Sullivan.
Down and back around trip.
I know,
Oh, okay, wow.
I remember they used
But
to
it's just
be,
a
father and
lesson.
grandfather used to talk about it.
I'd like to ask Marion Thompson if she would, I'm gonna ask Marion Thompson if she would speak, and then I think we're gonna have dessert at that point, and we're Lyman are gonna ask some more questions again if that's how we're gonna continue this. Oh, okay. Marion, I was wondering if you'd tell us about the post office and also Abbott Shoe.
Oh, I know a little about it. Is this on?
Yeah.
Is this on? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Abbott Shoe is the reason I came to North Reading. Because Mark Wright and, somebody earlier, came to a shoe shop where my father was working in Dollsville, New York. And they were looking for people who hand-turned shoes or slippers, as they were going to make a name for themselves with an easy fit slipper and hand-turn. And so my father and 4 or 5 of his friends came down to North Reading. And about a year he sent for us, and here I am. The post office, of course, like a lot of things, changed as the population changed. As I can remember when I was a child, it was in Molly Ryder's store. Beside her store, it was a regular little building that was attached. And then I grew up and got married, and I used to work in the post office when it was on the end of the Jones Brothers store. And at Christmas time, because we needed a lot of help. And one time, and I think it was the winter of '38, Lester Hayward became very ill, and there was no one to run the RFD route. So I got invited to try it. Well, if you think Martin's Pond is easy, I never was in such a mixed up mess. Because there were little roads off, and then you come to a whole batch of mailboxes. No numbers at that time, of course. The town hadn't been numbered. And there was no names on it. So it was pretty difficult, I'll tell you, to deliver the mail. I came in about 6 o'clock every night. But I usually had almost all of it delivered, only a little batch here and there.
Marion, we still have that trouble with Meals on Wheels over the phone.
Well, it's a pretty, it's no rhyme or reason to it. But it was fun anyway. Then we moved, they moved the post office to, we're at Jones Brothers. Then the next move was when they built on, and we were built on at the end of the drugstore that was there, right in the center. And then we got a little bigger, and they built a place down on Bow Street, a series of stores. And the Conrans at that time ran a laundromat right next door to it. So we stayed there for quite a few years. I'm no good at dates, so can't tell you what day it was. But then we got a lot of the farms were being sold off then, so then they built us a post office where it is now. And it was a good service job when I first started working, but when I retired, it was, come in for the money. And then the federal government made a lot of rules that some of the carriers just couldn't be that friendly, like taking your grocery order and bringing back the groceries next day. But I enjoyed working. I like service work, and I enjoyed working for the post office. And as luck would have it, my father was postmaster during most of my time. I also served under Robert Loud, and he could hire me because I had maintained my own household. If I had lived with him, he wouldn't have been able to hire me. So, but it was a good life, very good retirement.
Thank you very much, Mary. I wanted to ask Lyman Fancy 2 questions. One, if he would tell us about Ted Crosby's barbershop, and also about going to school in the Campbell building.
John, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, good.
Ted Crosby's barbershop was just about where Mrs. Snyder said the ice cream, only on the other side of the road. There's a little building, you see it now. It's right after you go down, if you're heading east, you go over the river, and where Washington Street hits Elm Street, there's a little building there. I think Mrs. Howard owns that property now. But that's Ted Crosby. He worked at the BB Chemical Company, which now Bostic. And then on nights and weekends, he cut everybody around this side of town's hair. And there'd be little kids, there'd be benches around that little, believe it or not, inside that little building, and there'd be old timers and all kinds of characters, even me. And
25 cents.
25 cents when I started, and then when he was just about retired, he went up to 50 cents. But he stood on his feet a long time because he had a lot of hair. The other side of town, I don't know if it was a little later, there was a fellow by the name of Benedictio.
Tony.
What was his name?
Frank.
Frank Benedictio. He was up on 28, and he worked for cutting hair up at Fort Devens, and he'd do that night. So I suppose I covered that side of town. But Ted Crosby's was a great play. The price was right. And he even when my grandfather was, he died at 94, but when he was laid up from 92 on, my mother was taking care of him in his house, Joe Turner. He'd come down once a week on a Sunday and he'd shave my grandfather, which was quite a nice thing. Did house calls, too. So, what was the other question? The Campbell Building. Oh, the Campbell Building. I went there in the 4th grade. I don't remember a teacher. That was a building just
With the flagpole.
where Havel Street goes by LD Batchelor. It was a nice building. It had 4 classrooms in it, 2 on each floor. And at least I thought it was fine. Too bad they turned it down.
Did it have 3 floors?
Yeah.
Did it have 3? I only got to the 2nd. But anyhow, I did the 4th grade there, and I didn't have a lot of people that went to school, LD Bachelor. They had Mrs. Gore, who was an old Nova Scotian school teacher, and pretty strict. If anybody had a...
Her daughter-in-law is here, so you better be quiet.
Huh?
Her daughter-in-law is here.
Oh, good. But, is that everything? So, but she was a great teacher, but I didn't have her. I can't remember all the other ones I had.
He said she would have straightened me out. But she
I had, in the 5th grade, I had a teacher, Miss Carter, and she's the only teacher I had. We went into the Somerville to the Ford plant. We went to Lexington, Concord Bridge there, and we went on a tour through Abichu, which was very interesting when it was humming. So, and in the 9th grade I had Mrs. Bambi, and she was a beautiful teacher. In summers she used to pick strawberries at my Aunt Mildred Turner's, and boy, she could pick. It was a good day. She didn't tell them to watch as well as I did.
There's one thing you didn't mention about with barber shop. You had to go by appointment.
Oh, at the end of it.
No, the end.
But you didn't at first.
No, but most of the time I went down. I remember mine was 10 o'clock every 3 weeks.
But it was a great place to meet people.
Oh, yeah.
But they'd be all ages.
Yeah.
You get a boys regular good.
What?
Boys
He
regular.
used to cut him close too. See you, Lyman?
Thank you, Lyman. That was great. Pat suggests, is that on now?
No.
Jenny, you shut it off?
That would help. Thank you very much. Pat was suggesting that maybe what would be nice now if we just ask questions, and because people have things they might want to ask that we haven't covered. So feel free. And what we'll try to do is try to take the first one first, and I don't know what kind of luck we'll have, but we'll try it, and then whoever's going to answer it, we'll just raise their hand. Okay?
Gordon?
Yes.
There's one industry in town that that nobody's mentioned yet. And that's the shoe companies, the individual shoe shops. On the shop on the corner of Chestnut Street, that's shop, you know, I don't know, when you go around the shop bend on Chestnut Street.
Big gray house that looks like a nice big farmhouse next
Yeah.
to the salt box.
That was,
Hey, you turn it on.
that was the factory. And all these individual farmers around, you have one of the shoe shops up here. And when my mother was in, this is where they used to bring all the shoes to sell. This goes way back, and I'm quite sure the Parkers are the ones that used to do the shoe companies around here. But that was one of the, I don't know, what do you call it, household industries? Everybody had a shoe shop. And they used to go all up there.
How about the ice house?
The ice house, over the ice house in Martin's Pond?
Yeah.
I remember when that burned. That used to be, was it National Tile?
Yes.
Is in there.
Yeah.
That had a big ice house and, ice house had one. But that was, the big one up there, and I remember as a kid, we used to go up there, because every year it seemed like somebody would get one of the trucks in. Yeah. Yeah.
Why don't you tell them about the Don's Cafe? And what happened after that?
Well, we had Don's Cafe, in one of those places like what we used to call a pond club. Don's Cafe was quite a nice place to go, but the place burned.
1943.
Yeah, and they never found, I don't know, did they ever find out who owned it?
Don.
But I remember that quite a thing going on there. I remember that.
Don Landry owned it during the war when cigarettes were scarce and liquor was scarce.
Yeah, well, you
But there was plenty of all that in there.
Plenty of all that in there. I think if you want to make a bet, something that was in there.
I'll tell you a funny one about that night. Remember you were talking about Billy Conner?
Yeah.
Well, they had the Ford pumper that night, and Billy was on the pump with his raincoat on. And somebody asked him for a cigarette. And he's standing in front of the headlights, opens up the raincoat, and there he is. That's all he's got on.
Does anybody know where Pinecroft was?
Pinecroft. I know this.
Chestnut
you had a
Street.
question, didn't you?
Across from the Honeyvale Cemetery.
You're right.
Good one.
Oh, that was quite a place.
That was one of the stagecoach stops.
There's one thing I was going to say, I'd like to take your question, but Gig Stevens was going to be here, and I had two questions for him. One was to describe what happened that day that the B-17 came in, and the other I was going to ask him about whether he would tell about his racing in Indianapolis, but someone else might take that B-17 issue. But may I take this lady's question first? Only she asked a little while ago, and I'm afraid I neglected her.
Yes. Well, we live in 155 Haverhill Street, and in looking back in the deeds in our house, we saw that there were some folks who owned the house years ago, and their trade was listed as being a cord wainer. And we haven't got a clue what a cord wainer is. And I wondered if perhaps somebody could enlighten us as to what a cord wainer is.
Cord wainer is a shoemaker.
Oh, get a shoe shop.
Does that answer your question?
I guess so.
Yes, Gordon.
On that B-17 that
Explain what the B-17 is, Dad.
B-17 is a bomber of World War II. It's what they call the Flying Fortress. And I was just pretty young at that time, but I was on the fire department when that went down. And there wasn't only one piece that was big enough to put on the truck was a wing that blew off, and it went down Mooney Hills a little bit. And the most of the stuff is like you took a piece of cheese and run it over a rasp. It would just go to pieces. And we were up there for quite a while, and like they mentioned on when we had the thing on the common, where they got all the firemen down there. The police weren't allowed up there, just the firemen. And they ended up with soldiers from Fort Devens and Westover Field guarding all around that with submachine guns. And the only, as I say, the only ones who were allowed there were firemen. And I remember they got us all down to the firehouse, and they say, don't say anything of what you've seen or what you hear about. The only way they could tell what kind of a plane it was, we got the numbers off one of the propellers. And they found out where it come from. It was on a bombing run.
There was someone else who was allowed up there, and that was your mother serving ham sandwiches.
She was
Red Cross.
She was the Red Cross.
not only that, but she was fireman's auxiliary, and they were allowed to go any place with us.
Tell them who found the bomb site.
I don't know who did.
Bobby Wright.
Bobby Wright.
And myself.
You?
It was in 2 different sections.
Yeah. But it was quite a horrible.
That's why they
thing.
wanted everybody out there. It was for the bomb site.
But you find pieces of body here and there. And
Where was it basically?
this is, I would say, is where the
Guadalajara.
junior high school is.
Guadalajara.
It was at the top of the hill. They were trying to come into Eisenhower's Pond, I understand. They just didn't make it. They hit the top of the hill. We got at it from Oakdale Avenue. And it's at that top of the hill is where they hit. And it was all rocks. The motors and the tires, we were almost down into the pond.
What year was that, Gordon?
I don't know.
1942. Right, Al?
Yeah.
42, right, Al?
Gordon, you could see where the plane came down because the trees
Oh,
were
yeah,
all
it
sheared off.
just sheared the trees right out. So they came down, and they were firing the machine guns at the time, that they were coming down. I don't know why or what. But I understand one of the wings flew off. They had a fire or something up there and blew the end of the wing off.
And afterward, when we were allowed to go up, the stench was awful.
Oh, it smelled terrible.
Oh, it was
They had
awful.
the aviation fuel and everything else.
Where'd they come from? Were they gonna drop a bomb on North Reading?
No.
I just wanna know, I'm understanding.
But the thing was, it was so foggy, they couldn't see the town probably. So they were on a bombing run. They used to use them for submarines.
We can't hear the question.
I can't hear the question.
I said, does hill get its name because there were loons on the pond?
No, no. Louis Hill, what I understand. We used to have a town farm, which was profit lives. And I understand that a lot of poor people were up there, and ones that had a little off. And that's what they call Looney Hill. But the thing was, Galvin's store was down below, and you went in Galvin's store, and you asked for Looney Hill, they wouldn't talk to you. It was known as Parkside Little Parks. One other thing about Looney Hill, I was delivered newspapers here. I got it from Charlie Bergman, 1937, 38, and they had a whole bunch of people up in Looney, the Lawrence Eagle, got all these customers, and they wanted me to take the route. Well, I didn't know anything about Parkside Little Farms, so there was Bobby Washburn, Joe Washburn's son. He was a friend of mine, so he took me around. The road was so rough, you couldn't ride a bicycle up through there, and so when he showed him, I asked him, he'd take the route. I think there was about 15, 20 people. And he delivered newspapers on horseback. I think it was the last horseback delivery that anybody had. I'm sorry if I keep calling it Looney Hill and I get in trouble all the time.
I understand it's Lunas Estates.
I have a question for Alfred. Was your family the only farm that farmed year round? I know you had the greenhouses. Was there anybody else in town that grew during the farm?
Greenhouses, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think there was anybody else in North Reading, but there was one down on Havel Street in Reading, and Woburn, there were several in Woburn, and
But they didn't burn tires.
there was a big one in Wakefield. There was, where Main Street goes through there, the intersection there.
Four Corners.
Yeah, Four Corners. There was a big chrysanthemum place, and they were in business for years and years. Beautiful chrysanthemums.
But what did you take to the market? What did you grow?
Oh, we grew mainly tomatoes and cucumbers and sweet peas before that. And chrysanthemums. A lot of work.
About the batteries.
Gordon, do you want to ask questions
Yes.
to the panel? Does anyone know, my mom might be able to tell me this, but, end of Nutter Road, there was a lady named Mrs. Hill, and she had, no, what was it, Mom, a garden? Nursery. And I wonder when that came about, if anyone knows.
At the end of Nutter Road,
What?
on the end of Nutter Road, I used to work from Monroe, Fuel, about 1950 or so, and there was a family down on the end of Nutter Road who used to raise blueberries.
Yeah.
And there was all kinds of blueberries down there. You could probably ask Stiles over here, he lived down there. But if I remember, there's quite a blueberry place.
Ask Ed Stiles.
Yeah, Ed Stiles knows.
How about, oh, before Hallberg's were there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I think I'm having a senior moment on that one.
Gordon, I wish ask your panel about some of the lumber yards in here in town, particularly Upton's. My dad took me over there when I was very young, and that really was quite an operation.
Would like to handle that? That's a question about the Upton Lumber Company.
I worked there. I go back as far as 1938, and what my father used to tell me when he lived in Reading, they used to make a complete house. They would have all that fancy woodwork, they'd make that, they had their own kiln, and they used to deliver in 1925, 1926. I think my father got some lumber from them in Reading, what they delivered to the horse and wagon. But at that time, I'm quite sure they must have had about 4 or 5 Model T Fords, except where, I wouldn't say that many, but that's a Model T Fords, and they're upward Gordon Halls in those garages where they used to park them. And I went to work for Harold Upton when I had this paper route, and I used to have to work for him on his grounds, like mowing the lawn and doing different things, and going down to the Upton place, down to the lumber yard. He used to walk around. Bob Brooks's grandfather used to work for, Mr. Avery used to work for Upton, and they owned that whole hill. And Cedar Swamp, what we used to call Cedar Swamp, was down in the meadow, back of the Harmonydale Cemetery, way down in there. They used to cut cedar poles down through there, and they had a mill, a sawmill down. When we was kids, we used to see it down there. All that was left was just a foundation. It must have been a steam power or something, because it used to be there with a lot of sawdust. But they used to make the whole house. In fact, I drove one of his last trucks. Johnny Mendes and I worked there, and it was a 1928 Selden Speedway. And didn't have any third gear, and I remember this. This was in 1950, that's what he had. Just as Harold Upton. And of course, they owned the whole neighborhood where we live now.
Thank you, Gordon. I know one thing about the Uptons that in regards to their sawmills. In I assume, I'm not sure if Fort Devens was built in 1916 or 17 or 18, but they had the contract to clear that land for them to build the Fort Devens, all the buildings. And at that time, they employed 100 men, and they were actually hired. They operated out of this house on Upton Avenue, And in the barn, which some of you remember, which I don't, I'm anxious to see a picture of the barn that was moved to Route 1 as a nightclub, had 17 pair of workhorses and one driving horse, which is Mrs. Upton's. So it must have been a lovely barn.
That's where Bob Brooks' grandfather worked.
Well, you probably know a lot about that barn, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. As a little kid, I used to help him go up and put the horses away.
Pardon?
I used to help him go up and put the horses away. He worked here for 30 years.
Any chance you have a picture of that barn? Well, Ginny's reminding me, as a matter of fact, I'll turn the microphone over to Ginny.
I'd like to, it's after 9, and we're all falling, not falling asleep, but it's getting to my bedtime here. We've got refreshments in the back, and there's pictures, and if you have any questions for the panelists, just go up and pigeonhole them. Knowing from my father, my mother talked to him all day to get him here. Now he'll never go home. But thank you guys very, very much. It's fascinating stuff. Thank you, Gordon, for doing all that hard work. If anybody would like to be on the mailing list to get a newsletter for the Historical Society, we'd be more than happy to mail it to you. We hope to do this again. We obviously have an awful lot of oral history that needs to be done. It's usually not done by the Historical Society, it's the commission. Is that the way? Well, somebody will get all these wonderful stories. I hope they have lots of tapes, actually. We are taping it. I don't know when we'll show it, but if anybody needs to see it again, we'll be more than happy to. Yes, ma'am?
I just want to mention that, I don't know, Alice Snyder, she probably had the first bilingual, bilingual education. That's right. I think that was the first time that it was held in this town, in the school we were in. She was the teacher.
What grade was that in, Lucy?
Bilingual.
I got it, though.
What was the second language you learned if it was bilingual?
Everybody there.
Oh, okay.
Some of the right.
So thanks to her, we can speak English.
You don't even have an accent now.
She was Miss Frank then.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, yes, Barbara?
And I think maybe the Historic Society is they're thinking about getting a committee together again to go and do that, and we could take these folks on an individual basis. We have Mr. Raya Senior, and oh goodness, Mr. and Mrs. Turner, and we got there's some very nice tapes, and they were well done. Flossie Conran, and gee, can you think of some more? Because they're let's see. We didn't get her, did we? No, we didn't get her. Let's see. Well, anyway, they're real good, and they are in the library.
Oh, I'll have lunch with them anytime.